Most care providers I've talked to have tried flyers and door drop leaflets, and universally they say, oh, they didn't work. But I think this is a really interesting example of how you can write off a medium because one particular element of many didn't work out or was wrong. So let's have a little look. I think first of all, I need to set your expectations for what sort of response rates you could consider from door drops and flyers. Typically we would see a fraction of a % response rate. So it may end up being quite an expensive undertaking, but you are reaching very targeted specific households and streets that you know that potentially you might get care staff from. So targeting is our first thing. Very important to think, where am I putting these leaflets or flyers? Which letterboxes am I going to target? And by plotting your own staff on a map, as we've talked about before, that will give you a good clue as to where the high potential areas are. Or for example, if you have a home care or a community-based business, you might be thinking, I need people local to the person I'm supporting. And that might guide you for where you're going to place those, or rather post those flyers. And in rural areas, you might not have much choice. There may be scattered houses around, and therefore you might as well leaflet them all. So in terms of targeting, we need to do a research to make sure it's exactly where we want it to be. Timing also has a factor. The classic times, of course, that people are considering a fresh start might be the back to school times when perhaps the kids are gone and mum is looking for something some employment which can fit it in after the holidays. Or it might be in January and people think often of taking a new role. But any time of year could work. The next thing you need to think about is the design of the flyer. And of course there are important elements that we need to get right. The first thing is the headline, and that can be a quote from somebody saying the value they're getting out of the job that they do as a frontline care worker, or it could be some kind of message asking a question. These are the two most successful headlines. And then of course imagery we've talked about before. A person looking at the camera is the most successful, or a group of people. And then we need a call to action, and it should be very, very clear. We found a higher response rate if there's a specific event you're asking them to attend, or there's a deadline, there's scarcity or some kind of deadline. Urgency makes it more effective. And it may be that you're doing some kind of open day and you're using leafleting to support driving people to a certain event on a certain date, and that can work better than a generic message because people don't feel the need to act on it quickly. Your choice then is, if I'm distributing them, should they be what we would call a solus drop, which is more expensive, and that is your leaflet or flyer is the only thing that's delivered at that time through the letterbox, or is it going to be combined with other flyers and leaflets, or even inserted into other magazines that might be put through the letterbox? And of course, I think the big failure and the main advantage we can have overcoming is this engagement, lack of engagement, not simply not noticing or looking at the flyer. Sometimes that is the critical point of failure. So how can we stand out more? Well, we haven't tried it yet, but we're looking to try something innovative like pop-up flyers that contain an elastic band, and when they're pushed through the letterbox, they pop up into a shape onto the doormat. And that might be something like a diamond shape or a cube or a circle, something that makes people think, oh my goodness, what's that? And they might then read the message, much more likely to. We don't yet know, but I think we need to think about innovative ways of using door drops. Try and find ways of getting standout, because we're getting exactly where we want to. It's actually being read, I think, is the main challenge. So download the cheat sheet provided on how to improve your flyers and door drops, and do tell me how you get on. I'm certain you'll find you'll get more response than perhaps you have done in the past.